In March Madness, the Fighting Illini are fighting on to the Sweet 16 after taking care of Penn University and Virginia Commonwealth over the weekend. Do they have a realistic shot against Houston in their hometown? We'll give you our predictions and previews coming up. A number one seed goes down, while we had a couple other scares from some other top contenders. In basketball, the Bulls had the weekend off, but there was some more action going on from around the league. In football, we're prepared for the NFL draft. We're a little bit less over a month away. We'll have something regarding the pigskin. And the baseball opening day starts on Wednesday, while the rest of you start on Thursday. On one whole opener could be moved towards Friday. Then, in a special edition of Old School TV Monday, celebrating opening day, as you listen to Second City Sports, which starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edmund back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide, up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Giddy, what a pass. Buzelis with the fake on the drive.
Uzi motions up. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Lovell catch. Breaks away the 30. Lovell 20. Lovell 10. Lovell end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to another stellar Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports So Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. Sidney Brown here, you know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2 hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I'll be giving LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to bill and beer boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live gang. That's LIVE, Live Entertainment Gang. That's checking us out live in the living color right now at 12:19 p.m. Central Standard Time at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. But let's all, as always, show much love to the replay gang that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We'll be value some of the best on Second City Sports as we get you ready for the baseball season. We're just days away. But the official start starts on Wednesday, but everyone also start on Thursday. As we'll have our buddy Evan Altman from Cubs Insider joining us. And to cap that off for Old School TV Monday, we kind of dropped some hints a little bit last year. If you remember what happened last year's opening day, we'll talk about that if you guys remember that. Of course, tough weekend for the Blackhawks. They lose. They got their butts kicked, as we thought, against the Avs, and they lost a tough one yesterday, I should say, to the Preds. Old School TV, like I said, I always say Old School TV Monday, but also to sports media news as some big ratings news for some of the sports, but also some changes too. We'll see, and also, of course, the Bulls. They didn't play this weekend, so I guess that makes you happy, but. Still a busy weekend in the NBA as a couple of milestones for both LeBron and KD. Ironically, the Bulls actually face KD and the Rockets tonight. We'll talk about that. and so much more. But first, Sid, the first weekend of March Madness is in the books, and of course, we'll start with Illinois. Illinois took care of business against VCU, and I know some people were worried, as I was. And look, it was an impressive win. Okay, fine. But let's see what the real test starts, because in the South region, they got to face Houston, not too far from where their campus is. Excuse me. But, good news for the Illini. They did their thing. They took care of business against VCU. They took advantage of them. Give them a little bit early. They kind of kicked it into gear. Late in the first half, going into the second half, and they were able to pull away from them. And look, a nice win from Illinois in that game. It was like definitely a total team effort there. Kylan Boswell had 12. Tomislav Isevic had 14 apiece, as well as Keegan Wago. But it was Andrei Stojakovic who had a big game. 21 points off the bench was a season high for him. He was kind of like the big guy up front for the Illini in that game, and that's kind of one of the reasons why they were able to take care of business against VCU, from the A10. But look, I know some people want to be impressed with Illinois, but look, I look at this and say, look, you did what you're supposed to do against a team that you're better than. So look, Illinois just took care of business, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what you're supposed to do. Like you said, against a lesser opponent, the way that the Illini started. Of course, as usual in many games that the Illini have played so far this year, they started off shooting hot. When they go cold, they let teams back in the game. And what the Illini didn't do was put that pedal to the metal in the middle that first half. Of course, VCU got back in it by being aggressive, taking the ball to the basket. But, I've been saying this over the when they start missing shots, what are you supposed to do? Take the ball to the basket. You saw Kylan Bosworth do that. You saw Keaton Wagler do that. You saw Andrei Stojakovic to a lesser extent do that. And you saw the Illini lead by seven points at the half. In the second half, it was all the Illini. They didn't let the foot off the gas pedal. And that's, like you said, that's what you're supposed to do against the team, as you say that you're better than on paper. Now, against the Houston Cougars, I think it's going to be a different story. Do the Illini have a chance? Sure, but if they don't keep up the intensity like they displayed in these first two games, it's going to be trouble for them.
Yeah, this is a 12 appearance in the Sweet 16 for this is the 12 appearance of the Sweet 16 for the Illini, and their first appearance is 24. When it got to Elite Eight, of course, they got their butts kicked by UConn, who went on to win the national championship, of course. And I think if you're the Illini, we'll preview the Houston game in a second here, but it kind of feels like, look, I mean, this is a total team effort. Everybody did what they're supposed to. Like I said, Stojakovic was off the bench. He took advantage of VCU's. They have a lot of speed, but they don't have a lot of tall guys there. So they were able to take advantage of that with their big guys up front in the front court. I know Isevic had some looks. He hit a couple of threes. Stojakovic, was a big guy up front, and that they were, had a couple of steals and such, so they caused a couple of turnovers. So yeah, it was fine by the Illini. Like I said, they took advantage of the size up front. They were able to kick it into gear in those last few minutes of the first half, and they were able to kick it into gear in the second half.
Yeah, the Illini shot the ball well overall at 48%, 38% for 3, 9 for 24. And with the points in the paint, we talked about this all year, LaKeena, with the Illini defended the paint. They limit VCU to 28 points in the paint. I know some of those points came late in the second half in garbage time, but the Illini had a +8 advantage overall, scoring in the paint at 36-28. And in total turnovers, yes, they turned the ball over 11 times, but they settled in, especially in the second half. And with the there was another set I wanted to read here. The free throws, as I talked about, 11-17 from the free throw line. You still want to get better at that as you start to play tougher teams. But VCU, as I mentioned, in the first half, 0 trips to the free throw line. There were 2 of 6 from the foul line overall. You're not going to win many games in the tournament if you're VCU. And it's one of the reasons why the Illini won. Of course, rebounding overall, +16 advantage for the Illini at 45-29.
Yeah, so like I said, they were able to take care of the big guys up front. That was really kind of the key for that game against the Illini. They were able to take advantage of that, and they were able to take care of business against The Rams of VCU down in Greenville, South Carolina. As the second seed sports on Sports Chicago, LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you, talking the first weekend of March Madness on the men's side. We'll talk about Illinois' opponent, Houston. A couple of days ago, they beat Texas A&M in the old Southwest Conference. If you guys remember that, back in the day, these two used to were in the same conference way back when. This is their first. I think this is their first meetings in like about 15 years or so. But it was pretty much all Houston. They kicked it into gear, like I said, halfway through the first quarter, never looked back. Manuel Char had 18 points. Milos Uzon had 15. Chris Sinak Jr. had 17, and it was sort of one of those days where they basically dominated up front. A&M, look, they've had a great season and such, but it was just basically all Houston, from jump.
And if you're the Illini head coach Brad Underwood, you got to focus in on that backcourt for the Houston Cougars as we get into our preview now for Thursday's game, which tips off at 9 o'clock from Houston. Excuse me. But we talked about Kingston Fleming's one of the many freshman sensations that's playing college basketball throughout the country. He's the engine that makes that Houston Cougars offense go. You mentioned by Milo's Uzon, he had a big game with 15. Emmanuel Sharp, he was on the team that almost went to the Final Four a couple of years ago. As we talked about during the preview show, he's one of those veteran guys, those upperclassmen, juniors to see us that tends to make a difference in crucial situations. He had 18 points, even though he didn't shoot the ball well against Texas A&M. That's a guy that could get off at any time. And the Illini guards with Boswell, Wagler, and Stojakovic, the guy that played tight defense.
Well, Houston, they can cause turnovers, and I think that's really been the key. They're one of the top defensive teams. I think they're in the top 5 in defense of all of D1. So that's going to be a tough. This is going to be a tough matchup for Illinois, and I think also too, like we said, they're not playing too far from their campus, so they're going to be a lot of. I know Illini fans travel well, but they're going to be a whole bunch of Houston fans for this one. So it might be basically a road game for the Illini. So they play the Big Ten. They deal with it all season, but this is going to be a different atmosphere here, especially we got the Sweet 16 going on in the South region.
Yeah, and my second key for the Illini to beat Houston on Thursday is defensive rebounding. One of the reasons why the VCU got back in the game midway through that first half last Saturday is because the Illini, we talk about those 50-50 balls, and sometimes it can make the difference between winning and losing. They couldn't grab the offensive rebound on some possessions, and other possessions they couldn't grab a defensive rebound, and they let VCU control the offensive boards for a mile stretch there. So once the ball's in the air, you got to be aggressive, go get it, and go set up your offense. So the two keys for me: guarding their play airtight defense on the perimeter, and rebound. You cannot give up the 50-50 balls. If you do, there's going to be a difference between you playing on Saturday for a chance to go to the Final Four and going home on Friday.
And also, like I said, Houston's one of those teams where, look, if you want to play fast, okay, fine, they'll do that. If you want to play a little slower, okay, defense, okay, fine, we can do that too. And I think that's where the versatilities of Houston, it's been consistent all year long. And I think, look, Illinois is going to have to be on their guard because Kelvin Stamps will have his guys ready, and I think they want to get back to the Final Four and redeem themselves after what happened last year. We'll get to the team that they lost to in a second. They're not there anymore after the break. But Houston, I think, is on a mission. They look like they're taking care. They've taken care of business so far. So Houston is going to have Illinois, get their best shot. They got to stay on guard on Thursday.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for the lineup to get out to a fast start. Do not turn the ball over early, like you said, because Houston, the pressure is going to be on Houston because it's playing their regional game is playing on their not only exactly in their campus, but in their home city. Like you said, the Illini is going to bring their fans, but the Cougars are going to have more fans because it's in their quote-unquote backyard in the city of Houston. So the Illini, like you said, they played in tough environments all year in the Big Ten, like Michigan State, Wisconsin. So they know that type of pressure. But this is a team that usually you don't play out of conference. They're bringing that heat from the fans. They're bringing that extra energy to the court. You got to stay composed early on. don't do anything too much out of your comfort zone. Don't I know because there's going to be nerves on both sides, but staying within your game, execute offensively, play airtight defense on their three guards, and rebound the basketball. And you got to win those 50-50 battles with those loose balls because there's going to be a difference, like I said a few minutes ago, between you moving on and going home.
We'll take a really quick break. Of course, we'll talk about the rest of the weekend in March Madness. As we saw, one number one seed goes down, and a couple of other upsets too. We even had a couple of buzzer beaters. So we'll have that and so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. More March Madness talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Oops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the Monday Extravaganza edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
We're continuing our recap of the March Madness men's basketball tournament for over the weekend. So if you have any questions or comments regarding that subject, and if you have a prediction on the Illini's Sweet 16 matchup with the Houston Cougars this coming Thursday, we'd like to hear those as well. You can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get you.
All right, let's continue in the South region where we'll have a new national champion as Iowa upsets Florida 73-72. It was back and forth. I know Iowa's up for a little bit, and then Florida's up for a little bit. It was kind of back and forth, and unfortunately, questionable defensive decisions by Florida. Well, all game, but including late in that game. Why are you going man? Going into that led to Alvarado Figueroa's 3-pointer that ended up being the game winner for Iowa. Unfortunately, he had 14 points off the bench. Tavion Banks had 20. Bennett Sturts had 13. On the flip side for Florida, 19 points for Thomas Haw, 21 for Alex Condon. Xavier Lee had 17. And it's just like, why are you going for the steal there? Oh, look, you can say Bulgarius should have been ejected after getting into it with a Condon for a loose ball earlier. That's a whole, no one will mention that, but I'll mention it. But look, a nice win for Iowa. Ben McCollum's first win and his comb over. Going way back to 1999, the last time Iowa made the Sweet 16. Of course, they just settles. He works with Big Ten Network now. Was on that squad, and look, a nice win for Iowa. Just a bad defensive play for Florida in that game.
Yes, we talk about all the time, especially in the game of basketball. You got to go for those 50-50 balls, and you got to hit your free throws. The possession before Fulgarius hit the game winner. Florida split a pair of free throws at the free throw line, and it turns out that 1 point was the difference between winning and losing. So, as we say all the time, take care of business, especially in crucial situations. 9 times out of 10, you about Fulgarius hitting that game winner. He was wide open in the corner, like you said, LaKeena. Why are you going for the steal when you're down? You're up a couple of points. And shout out to Fulgarius. I don't know if you heard his story. Laura Shahadi did a nice job interviewing him after the game. Every time he hits a 3-point shot, he points to this guy because his father passed away when he was at the age of 9. And number 2, his mom was there. Only the 3rd time she got a chance to see him live and in person. She witnessed her son hitting the game-winning shot. Beautiful story. That's one of the many reasons why we like March Madness. Now, on the flip side for Florida, like you said, that was the first mistake, going for the steal before Fulgarius hit that game winner. Why is your point guard driving in the basket with 3 seconds left? He was trying to give it to Hall to lay it up and in, but there was a couple of guys open at the 3-point arch. They had a wide open look. You really didn't have to drive the ball that deep. You could have kicked it out. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah. Hall was like, yeah. Just like I said, a lot of questionable decisions by Todd Golden, and he's going to be feeling the heat as he should from those questionable decisions those last couple of plays. But again, that's here there. But congrats to Iowa, Ben McCollum, and his comb over. Great, we got to look at that comb over for another 3 days. Goodie. But I know about the Bulgaria story. I remember when they did the Big Ten. They did a feature on it earlier this year. So that was a nice story. And I think the only, like I said, the 3rd time that his mom got a chance to watch him play in person. So that was a nice moment. Their last night down at OKC. The other game from that South region, Vanderbilt and Nebraska. Talk about probably one of the games, if not the game of the tournament. What a wild sequence! It was back and forth throughout that whole game, and Braden Frager hit a layup with a few seconds left, and then of course, poor Tyler Tanner. He had a 3-pointer, from half court, and halfway in, halfway out. The basketball gods are such it can be very cruel sometimes, and that's what happened here. 74-72, the final. Nebraska and Iowa faced each other for the 3rd time this season. They split their first 2 games in the conference. But such a heartbreaker. From the highs of them celebrating, it was the Sam Hoiberg and his twin brother's birthday. He's a graduate assistant manager there. But on Vandy side, you gotta feel bad for Vanderbilt though.
Yeah, Tyler Tanner joins Gordon Hayward from 2009-2010 when Butler was inches away from stealing the championship away from Duke. I want to say 2010. I know someone will
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong in the comments already watching live or on the replay. But he joins Gordon Hayward as being on the one shiny moment, but on the ugly side. On the flip side, the victory side for Nebraska, no one expected them to make it this far. But shout out to Fred Hoiberg. Yes, his son is a major contributor on the team. They remind me of the Fighting Illini a little bit, only they shoot the ball consistently a little bit better than Illini, in my opinion. But Nebraska showed you why they're ranked in the top 5, top 10 all year long. And like you said, it was a classic battle throughout, but Nebraska made their free throws when they had to. They made a couple of crucial rebounds and made a couple of key plays when they had to. And that's why they're moving on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, it'll be Nebraska and Iowa again for the third time. This this year, like I said, they split their first two meetings, so not for nothing, but I think they'll definitely sounds like a football matchup. And I'm sure they have faced each other in football, but it should be interesting to see what happens there. As you listen to Sports on Sports Chicago, LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we recap the weekend in college hoops. And as we say in the Big Ten, UCLA. Well, they failed to join the party for the Sweet 16. They lose to UConn 73-57. And 27 points so for Alex Caravan, of course, one of the holdovers from those back-to-back championship squads. And look, they stay with the UCLA. You got to think, Tyler Bordeaux, he didn't play, so you got to think that contributed a little bit there. Braylon Mills had 17, but UConn kind of imposed their will. About halfway through the second half, they were able to hang on late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I had to chance to catch some of that live. And like you say, it was a tight knit first half. It did last night. You mentioned Dan Hurley's crew in UConn. They do have a talented squad. Is it like the squad that they won the title 2 years ago? No, because they were dominant. This team is not that dominant. They're still good, but not as dominant. Their shooting got hot. I know Mick Cronin picked up a technical foul, but by that point, the game was way out of reach. So talent and execution won out for UConn at the end, and they're moving on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, nice win for UConn there. They're back to the Sweet 16. Going into staying in the East region. This is from Saturday. Michigan State pulled away from Louisville up in Buffalo, 77-69. Cohen Carr had 21 points, including that monster dunk early in the second half. That was just a real crazy dunk there. And 12 points and 16 assists from Jeremy Fears Jr. And he that breaks a record for the first few games. The most, I think he had like 28 in total assists so far. So yeah, we know Coach Izzo. He always his teams always play great when it counts and really counts. And look, you saw what happened. Louisville. Look, that's again Louisville squad. I know they were out one of their top scorers. Ryan Conwell had 21. Adrian Woolley had 17. But they just couldn't break through, go into a run. Just we thought that they'd get into a run. Michigan State hit a big three or hit a big layup, and Jackson Collier had a nice hoop. So Michigan State were able to impose that experience, and they were able to pull away.
Yeah, and this is what Tom Izzo's teams do every year. They execute down the stretch. They hang in tough. They play tough defensively. But as you mentioned, they have speed and quickness on the offensive side of the ball. We talked you about Cohen Carr. And he was one of the 3 players I was want to watch out for from Michigan State to have about Jeremy Fears. He stepped into forefront, as you mentioned. I'm talking about with Carr with 21 points and 10 rebounds. Jeremy Fears had 5 turnovers, but he usually could control the pace better than that. I expected to limit the turnovers to get better at that in the next game. But you mentioned Carr, especially down the stretch, delivers some big buckets for the Michigan State Spartans. On the other side for Louisville, like you said, they were missing one of their top guys, and I think that obviously they proved to be the difference in the game. But they hung in tough with Michigan State. Michigan State pulled away just enough to breeze on to an 8-point victory.
Could be a sleeper there. Now staying in the East, from Saturday, number 1 seed, number 1 overall seed, Duke. They were only up 4, but But in the second half, they kicked it into gear late, pulling away from TCU, 81-58, 17 points from Isaiah Evans. Cam Boozer had 19. Malik Brown had 12 in that game, and they could get one of their guys back too just in time for the game against this team, but down at Greenville on Saturday. But as for TCU, they just couldn't get it going. I know Micah Robinson, 18, 12 points for Xavier Edwards. That was about it for them. They just couldn't hit their shots. I know people want to do the whole free throw disparity, 23 for Duke and only 10 for TCU, but they weren't hitting their shots, so that's really what killed them in the end.
Yeah, and that technical foul that that TCU coach Jamie Dixon received midway through that second half, just like Mick Cronin from UCLA last night in their game against UConn. That was a momentum turner, in my opinion. The Horned Frogs, you mentioned, they couldn't shoot their way out of a paper bag late in that second half. Like you said, Duke took over right there. Give John Shire credit for having these guys motivated and using his players to their strengths. You mentioned about Cam Boozer. We said it before. We'll say it again. You're looking at a top 2, top 3 pick in this year's upcoming NBA draft. And like you said, Isaiah Evans, he's that third scorer that this Duke Blue Devils team needed.
Yeah, and also too, their big guy up front, Patrick Gongba, could be back. Since they don't play till Friday, he could be back. So they definitely need that to have that depth. So that could definitely be just what the doctor ordered there for Duke. Now they'll be facing St. John's, who another probably one of those games too as well against Kansas yesterday. And boy, this was such a game. It was back and forth for a little bit. Well, you know what? It was mostly St. John's. I know Kansas went on a run. But it was Dylan Darling who had not hit a shot all game long. He had struggled. And you saw, if you heard Coach Patino's
he was 0 for 4.
Yeah, and it also 1 for 5 from the field as well. And if you heard Coach Patino's comments, the fact that he had the cojones, that's what he said. He didn't curse, but he said cojones to go for it and hit that jumper. And if they were able to get it going, and look, St. John's is back for the first time in the Sweet 16 since all the way back in 1999 from a certain former NBA player. Can you guess who was on that team, the last St. John's team that went to the Final Four?
I'm not on Google, but I can name you 2 people off that team. Mike Jarvis, who was the head coach, and Ron Artest, now Meta World Peace. I was a senior in high school, and like you said, that St. John's squad took people by storm across the country. But back to yesterday's action, the Redmen had this game in control by 98% of it, and of course, Kansas made a run, which you knew they would. Darren Peterson, perhaps in his last college basketball game, 21 points and 9 rebounds. But defensively, Kansas did not have it. Zuby Ojefor, shout out to him. He makes that team go for St. John's. He had 18 points and 9 rebounds and 4 assists. He sets the tone inside for St. John's. St. John's is a tough, physical, defensive team, and we all know how Rick Pitino likes to press. He's been doing it since he's been coaching the NBA, college basketball a couple of times back in the day. He still does it now. So you can tell that his defensive pressure brought by the Kansas throughout the entire game. But on that last possession, that was a great call for my man who hit the game winner. Kansas had a lot of people in foul trouble. Let's not forget that. So they had to be a foul with 5 seconds to go. I think because they had a foul to give. But you let St. John's get the ball at half court. I thought that was a terrible mistake, but that was just me. But congratulations, St. John's, is for the determined started. Even though this is a different team from the one that surprised people last year, they got some business to take care of, especially after being eliminated around this time last year by John Crapapari in Arkansas. Now they're going on to the Sweet 16, and I think if they win their next game, I think they're going to the Final Four. That's just me personally.
Yeah, they get to face Duke in that game, and that should really a really good one there. Let's go through some of these other ones real quick. Let's go to the West region. from yesterday, staying in San Diego as the Wildcats, the Arizona Wildcats, number one seed that took care of business against Utah State, 78-66. 16 points for Baden Burries, and Koa Pete had 14 points. Of course, Jaden Bradley, the Big 12 Player of the Year, led the way with 18 in that game. So, the Utah State did make it interesting for a little bit. They got it down to 4, but some big shots there by those guys I mentioned, and they got it going there. So, nice for Arizona. Arkansas, look, they got all they can handle from high points, 94-88, but they were able to win. This was up in Portland, Oregon. Now they're back in the Sweet 16. Darius Acuff Jr., 36 points. What more can you say about that kid? And look, he's probably going to go to the NBA after this game, after whatever they lose. But Arkansas, Arizona should be a fun one out there in San Jose. You don't know your way to San Jose, but I'm sure they'll find their way there. But that should be a good. Yeah. Well, I had to. That was a nice quote by him as usual. But it should be a good matchup there on Thursday between Arizona and Arkansas.
Yeah, it's going to be two teams with contrasting styles. You mentioned about Darius Acuff. He's a freshman sensation, and he can score the basketball. We told you guys that during our preview show. You saw that against High Point. Give High Point credit. I watched the end of this game live via this computer screen, and they stayed with Arkansas for a while. Arkansas couldn't get anybody else to help Acuff out in terms of scoring, but on the flip side for Arizona, my guy Jaden Bradley, Anthony Del Orso, he's definitely going to be a big factor in this game. We know that both teams can score a little bit more of Arizona, so who can slow down the tempo and who can take care of the basketball? I think it's going to be the two keys to watch out for Thursday.
Going to be very interesting to see what happens out there in San Jose in that game. Now, probably another big upset here, and I don't think anybody had this. Texas beat Gonzaga in the other side of that West region there, and I think they came out of the first four. They took care of business. Matas Yucatelis had 17 points also, as well as Jordan Pope. They had a couple of big threes. Gonzaga just couldn't get going. Graham Ike had 25, but that was basically it for Gonzaga. So that was all she wrote from there. They didn't shoot the ball very well from three either, only 4 for 16. So that kind of killed whatever momentum they had. And Purdue, don't look now, folks, but they're kind of, I don't want to say they're seeing up, but I'm just like, shout out everybody who had the call of this one for in St. Louis yesterday. Matt Painter gets his 500 career win, and Purdue, look, they might got to give them all they could handle after trailing in the first half, but they kicked it into gear. Braden Smith had 17, Fletcher Lawyer had 24, Trey Kaufman had 19. Those are the three kind of holdovers from that team that went to the Final Four a couple years ago with Zach Edey. And they took care of business against Miami.
Yeah, as we talked about with Purdue, who's going to have about Braden Smith? I've been putting pressure on Trey Kaufman. He's been doing the job for the last few weeks. You saw how he performed at the end of the regular season. You saw what he did in the Big Ten tournament here in Chicago. And you saw what he's been doing so far in this tournament. So if you have two other guys that can score the basketball to help out Braden Smith, Purdue is almost a well-oiled machine offensively. So if those other two guys you mentioned that had big games offensively can keep it up, Purdue, they'll have a great shot of going to the final.
Yeah, it should be an interesting matchup between Texas and Purdue. I mean, those two teams really are kind of like that. Sort of like that. I think Purdue, we sort of saw that we knew it would come, but I don't think no one had Texas. I'm sure nobody had Texas get into the Sweet 16. So Sean Miller in his first year, a great job. We'll see if they can get Purdue all they can handle. So we'll see what happens there. Now, last but not least, the Midwest region. Of course, the regionals will be here in Chicago on Friday, and I'm looking forward to this one. But we'll start with Michigan. Michigan took care of business against St. Louis, 95-72. Alabama, no JT Toppin for Texas Tech. We all kind of figured that this would happen, unfortunately. The threes were really the key for Alabama in that win. They hit 19 threes. I think that's like the highest of, for any game they've had this year. So Michigan against Alabama. No, this is not football, folks. This is not a football game we're playing here. But as far as about the Elite Eight, no, we're not doing that. But on the other side of that region, I don't think anybody had this one. Going back to St. Louis, our boy Spiro Diaz had to call this game as well. It was all after the first half, when it was Iowa State was only up 1, but they kicked into gear to the second half. No Josh Jefferson, no problem for Iowa State. Tamiya Lipsy, who we've talked about him as well, 26 points for him, which is a season high. Mila Malkiewicz had 20 points for the Cyclones as well. Ote Owe had 18. Daniel Aberdeen, excuse me for me to say, had 20 points. But Kentucky, other those two, Kentucky really couldn't get it going. But yeah, it was all Iowa State in the second half.
Yeah, you mentioned about Aberdeen. He stepped up to the forefront, especially after Jefferson injured his ankle in their first game last Friday afternoon as we went off air. But Iowa, they're still going to have to continue to get collective efforts from some of the other secondary guys, because we all know they like to score the basketball. They like to shoot the basketball as well. So it's going to be tougher on them with their next opponent. Just riddle me this for a second, LaKeena. We talk about the Big Ten always getting between 6, 8, and now 10 teams because of the additions of those West Coast schools over the last few years. Did you have this many Big Ten teams advance into the tournament? I didn't. I'll be honest.
Nah.
Yeah. I know no one had Iowa advancing. I know some people had Michigan State. Some people had Illinois. Okay. And of course, Michigan's the number one team. One of the number one teams in this tournament with the number one seed. But did you have this many Big Ten teams advancing? I did.
Yeah,
they usually out by the first weekend, maybe 1 or 2 advances to the Sweet 16, but that's about it in the past.
Six Big Ten teams and only one ACC team. ACC came in with 7 teams. Duke is the only team left standing from the ACC. So I don't think anybody had that either. So yeah, I think this is what happens when now you've got Iowa and Nebraska playing for the third time in the Sweet 16. This is what happens when you have super conferences. So I don't think anybody had that. Now, speaking of what you didn't have, Tennessee, mild upset, I guess, over Virginia, 79-72. 21 points for Jacoby Gillespie. He was hitting the lights out from 3-point. He was 3 for 5 from 3. Bishop Boswell had 13 points. Nate Emmett had 16 as well. Virginia, 22 points for Tija DeRitter, but Blake Thomas had 12. But yeah, they definitely struggled from the. They did pretty well from 3. It's just that Tennessee and their defense. We saw how they did against Miami of Ohio. Their defense on Friday, that defense was suffocating, and they suffocated Virginia's defense, especially late.
Yeah, like we always say all the time, the NBA playoffs is all about matchups and adjustments. Well, Tennessee has been heavily relying on their defense. They took a page out of Virginia's book and went to the defensive card. Virginia's been known for that over the last several years. Tennessee did a better job than Virginia at that department, and that's why they won the ball game.
Yeah, so it'll be Tennessee and Iowa State and Michigan and Alabama. Those games will be on Friday. So it'll be right here in Chicago. So we're at the UC. So folks, I'm sure folks from all those teams will be a nice little treat there for those folks. So should be a couple of good ones out there in the UC on Friday.
Yeah. Let's just go down the schedule real quick. What's going to happen on Thursday at 6:10 p.m. Central Standard Time on CBS is Texas and Purdue in the West region in the Sweet 16, followed by Iowa and Nebraska at 6:30 on TBS and True TV. Arkansas and Arizona at 8:45 p.m. on CBS, and that's in the West region from San Jose. And the final lineup, yes, Illinois will face off against Houston from Houston, the South region in Sweet 16. That's this Thursday at 9:00 p.m. That game can be seen on TBS and True TV, and that's just scheduled for Thursday.
All right, we'll preview the games in DC, of course, right here in Chicago at the UC, since it won't be till Friday, so we'll wait till Friday to preview those games. So, but yeah, I think Illinois, Houston being the nightcap. I think even if Florida had beaten Iowa, I think they still would have gotten They still would have got, Illinois and Houston still would have been the nightcap. So for people who are saying the whole why does it that's how it is this time of year. So folks, so don't complain about it now. It's been that way for as long as we can remember.
Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with Evan Altman from Cubs Insider previewing the 2026 Chicago Cubs. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
All right, and welcome back to Second Seed Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm LaKeena McGee. Follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, executors again on IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
And if you want to, if you have any questions or comments for our previous segment about the first week of March Madness, or any predictions you guys have for Thursday's games, of course, or anything else we're about to talk about, all you Cubs fans, as we're about to preview the Cubs season. In just a second here, you could do it. You could do it, right there on the Sports Zone Facebook and YouTube comments. So it's all right there. We'll have it up on the screen. Be nice, folks. So yeah, we're about to preview Cubs and what to expect for them this season.
Yes, sir. We're going to bring on a good friend of the show. He's from Cubs Insider. He's the editor-in-chief of that great website. He's going to preview the Northsiders for the upcoming 2026 season. What are the expectations? Who's going to bring some of the breakout players and more? And we're going to get into the rest of the MLB, since they'll start on Wednesday with the Yankees and the San Francisco Giants. Everybody else will start on Thursday. To help us do that, we'll be bringing back good friend of the show. Let's do it right now, Mr. Evan Altman. Evan, welcome back to the show.
I'd be doing a lot better if my Twitter account hadn't just gotten hacked like 20 minutes or so before. I was like, I realized I don't have a link for any of this stuff. It's amazing how much you realize how dependent you are upon certain social media stuff. So hopefully I can get that recovered. But if anybody out there happens to get a message from me telling you to invest in my crypto stuff, then probably not me. Didn't get a new truck, so I kind of wish I would have a new truck. But anyway, maybe I'll manifest that somehow else. But I'm glad to be here. Glad I got it worked out.
Oh, cool. Now, what is the update on Saya? I know we know he got hurt at the WBC. That really, it wasn't as serious as we thought it would be, Evan. But it really hasn't been any updates. So, what do you know?
Yeah, so they did just announce. Craig Counsell said he will open the season on the injured list. So he will be out for a little while. He's been wearing a brace around the facility, and seems like everything should be fine. It's a sprain. He's participated in activities to the extent that he can, but I think knowing that they have a little depth there in the outfield, they did add Michael Conforto to the roster. Matt Shaw's been playing out there. They've got Kevin Alcantara and Dylan Carlson still in camp. So they have enough that they can patchwork right field together as much as they need to, but looks like he'll miss a couple of weeks there just as he takes it easy. They're not gonna rush him back, right? The rest of the season is more important than trying to get him back a little too quickly.
Sid?
Yeah, I want to ask you about the starting rotation. Of course, it looks like it's stacked for the. I want to ask you about this starting rotation. It looks like it's stacked for a second year in a row. Of course, the veteran Matthew Boyd, who won 14 games last year, would get the start. I know some people argue for Cade Horton. Did you have a problem with this to set the tone as you start the new year?
I had been saying for a while. I mean, I felt like Cade Horton should have been the man for it in terms of who's actually the best starter that they have, right? If you're going best, it's Horton. However, realistically, it kind of comes down to who's batting first versus second in the lineup, right? Over the course of the season, they're going to get just about the same number of plate appearances. Does it really matter? And I think, for Boyd, who has shared he's been very emotional about it. His grandfather was a big Cubs fan, and he was really excited to sign with the Cubs in the first place. And so I think when it comes to being able to represent the team and kind of the emotions that go into all that, it's pretty cool. And I mean, he's been around for a while. He's battled back through a lot of injuries, had a great season last year, and really put the team on his back for a while there. So I totally understand why they're doing it. And it's kind of a nice nod to a veteran. Cade Horton's going to have plenty more chances, ideally, to get those opening day starts in the future. So I don't have a problem with it. Again, I think it is one of those things that comes down to more of the seniority than it does actual performance or expectations. So I'm fine. It's cool. It's just one game. No big deal.
Very true. Now, sticking with the pitching, I know Daniel Palencia pitched lights out during the WBC, which led to Venezuela winning it. So if the Cubs could just get a little bit of that from him, I think he should be probably one of the best closers of baseball. What say you?
Yeah, I mean the energy and I think we look at closers all the time, and that seems to be a role more than any other that is, I don't know about dependent upon, but that they could really thrive off of energy and that actual role. I mean, that's a real thing. You take a lot of those guys and they have to get super jacked up to pitch that ninth. A lot of times you take some of those closers, you put them in a non-save situation, you put them in a different inning in the game. Some of them aren't as great in that role, and some of that can maybe be overblown a little bit. But what I liked about it was not only seeing the emotion, not only seeing the performance itself, but when you look at how he shut down that game against Team USA, he went 1-2-3 on 3 left-handed batters. And if you look at his splits from last season, he was far, far better against right-handed hitters. The lefties really tuned him up pretty well. And so for him to go against 3 of the best left-handed hitters in the game and to shut him down the way he did shows me a lot more than, whether it's the emotion, whether it's just, again, getting the save is one thing, but the people against whom he got it, I think really tells us that this guy's made some improvements. He's still got the triple-digit fastball. We saw how just him getting up to the majors was a product of cutting down on the walks. That the wildness was a big problem for. That seems to be gone. So I think it bodes very, very well for what he's going to be able to do in the big leagues for the Cubs this year, kind of in that full-time role.
Evan Altman from Cubs Insiders hanging out here with us right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday extravaganza, previewing the 2026 Chicago Cubs. Evan, let's go to Pete Armstrong. Of course, last year, for those that haven't been paying attention, that weren't paying attention last year, it was the tale of two halves. He was an MVP candidate in her first half, earning him an All-Star nod. In the second half, pitchers figured him out. He struggled for the play, but he did bring his defense all year long, including the playoff series against both playoff series against San Diego and Milwaukee. This year, you saw what he did in the WBC. I know him and Alex Bregman are starting to be BFFs now. We'll talk about Alex Bregman in just a moment. But what do you think that what do you expect from PCA this year? And do you think that whatever he does this year, do you think this is going to set the tone not only for the season but for the rest of his career? Because we saw two different extremes, as I mentioned last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably see, kind of something. I guess if I were to look at him like he took the Incredible Hulk first half and then the Bruce Banner second half, and I think now maybe we see the Hulk from which one, Endgame, right, where he puts them both together, so you get the brains and the brawn, and I think it's maybe not the extremes of either. I don't think we're going to see this 60 home run pace and this monster half, but I don't think we're going to see the big fall off either. There's a lot of this, comes from maturity, and he's very self-aware about it. Had a great interview article in Chicago Magazine with Wayne Drays, who's just a phenomenal writer, and there's a great story there. But you could tell, like, Pete gets it, and I think, as you had mentioned there, having someone like an Alex Bregman to come alongside, and not only to be buddy, but there's an aspect of getting in somebody's face and letting them know, like, hey, you're better than this. Like, there are things you need to do and you need to learn. And PCA had said it himself. He's like, no, I want that. I want someone to point that out to me. I want someone to show me. And that's not the case with every kind of young phenom player, whether it's just the youth, whether it's because they're just used to being better than everyone else. There are a lot of guys who don't want to be given that constructive criticism. And I think with this pairing, you have someone who can help him kind of understand, hey, there's times to try to turn it on and to do everything with one swing. And there's times when you need to learn to kind of sit back a little bit. And I think with PCA, he is so athletic. He's just so good out there on the field and always has been throughout his entire life, right? He was playing on Team USA 12U, right? And all the way up through. So you've already been identified at a time when most kids are still playing just regular Little League ball as someone who's representing the United States in international competition. It can be really difficult, I think, for some of those guys to understand how to back off a little bit and let the game come to them. He is so used to just making everything happen. And I think once he learns to let things happen a little bit, to sit back and let the game come to him, understand those pitchers' tendencies, he'll be able to really take off. So, yeah, I really think this season could be a big stepping stone for him in terms of what he's going to end up being.
Now, Michael Conforto has made the main roster. With Seiya out, I'm sure he's probably going to be seeing some of right field. So how much do you think he can contribute to, because how maybe he could probably have that bounce back season?
Yeah, I'm not all that bullish on Conforto. The last few seasons I think are pretty telling. And if this was 3 or 4 years ago, I think it would have been a really great move, whether that's as, the fourth outfielder, kind of that depth piece. He'd put up some really good numbers earlier in his career. But I mean, I'm sure he'll be okay. He'll be fine. Is that something, if it's an extended period of time that he's got to step in there? I have concerns about that. And I'd say the same thing about Matt Shaw Not as much offensively, but defensively with the well out there and right and all the wind at Wrigley Field, especially there in March, and the temperature changes, and who knows where that stuff coming in off the lake. Kevin Alcantara is another one who I think he's got a really, really good shot, and I'd really like to see him get a lion's share of those additional innings. At this point, again, the Cubs only have one option left on him. The kid's super, super athletic, tons of potential, but the only way to let him realize that is to give him playing time, and he really hasn't found that consistently yet. So we'll see. But again, on Conforto, he's fine. It's a fill-in, but I don't expect him to have too much of an impact other than just kind of being that solid presence. You know what you're getting with this guy. He'll go out there, give you a few solid professional plate appearances. He's probably not going to screw up too much out there, right? I mean, I'm sure he'll be okay, but super unexciting. I'm just he's there, it's fine, but they really, really need to have Seiya Suzuki as often as possible in that lineup. So once he gets back, I think that gives him a huge boost.
And now, of course, going back to the pitching staff, Evan, we'll focus in my next question on the bullpen. Of course, last year he had veterans like Brad Keller and Drew Pomerantz, who they picked up around this time last year. As Craig Counsell was figuring out his bullpen by midway through the season, he kind of figured that out. This year, you have Phil Maton, Hunter Harvey, Caleb Theobald, who, in my opinion, is one of the best left-handed relievers in the game, and, of course, Jacob Webb, Hobie Milner. Are you worried as much about the bullpen as you were at this time in the beginning of the year last year?
I feel actually a little bit better about it. I like what they've done in terms of, and I've brought this up a couple of other times, kind of like what the Rays have always done with they call it pitching around the clock, having different arm angles from both sides. And, you mentioned Milner, kind of the sidearm, really low slot guy. Field bars a little more over the top. You get Harvey with the hard throwing. You get a couple other guys. We talked about Palencia. Ben Brown made the roster. They optioned Javier Assad down, so you got Ben Brown as like a hard thrower who's now implemented a sinker and has his changeup working a little bit better to go with his fastball and curveball. You got Colin Ray, who's able to provide a lot of length out of that, be your long man, and he's actually seen his velocity tick up a little bit. We've seen him be able to give some really quality innings. So when you kind of look at that and break it down, you say, well, okay, we know we've got our kind of long guys at the front. We've got Palencia at the back end. And now we've got just this mixture of stuff and velocity and arm angles that we can really play the matchup game. If you're Craig Counsell, I think he can look at this and really sort of play chess with that bullpen. It's still a little bit, Harvey is a hard thrower. We can miss some bats. Ben Brown can miss some bats. I'd like to see another one of those types. I think they're probably going to be a little more reliant on outs via contact than what I would really prefer to see, particularly once the season gets on and you get into October. But I do like the way they've planned this to where they can really set this up and strategize regardless of what team or what other players are coming up in that inning. It is one of those things where you've got some reliable pieces and they can beat you in a number of different ways. So I like it. We'll see. Ask me again in a month, I might have a different answer. But going into the season, I feel pretty good about it.
Well, let's talk about Shota for a second, Evan, because I think that's really like I don't want to say he's a wild card, but I think that's like kind of like the $1 million question with Shota. He had his ups and downs last year. He's had his ups and downs this spring. So I don't know what else can Shota do. I mean, what does he have to prove to you that he put up his options? So what do you think's going to happen with Shota this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think what would be really nice, that first year he came on and pitched, I think, better than really anybody had anticipated. And then, last year, kind of following that hamstring injury, things just got off the rails for him. And especially late in the season down the stretch when he was giving up 1 or 2 home runs. It felt like at least every time he was going out there, more than that. I mean, it was just, you can't have that happen when you're trying to compete for the postseason. And when you get into the postseason, those home runs were really killers. But I think when you have, again, the emergence of Matt Boyd, you've got Cade Horton at the top, you've got Edward Cabrera, and there's a little bit of depth there. Having Imanaga being able to step back into really the back half of that rotation where he really just needs to be comfortable, be confident, continue to throw strikes, Because that's the thing. He was known as a fly ball pitcher. It was always known he was going to give up homers, but he also was a strike thrower. So as long as you avoid those big innings and having a bunch of guys on base when you hit those homers, it's fine. So I think with him, if he can pitch to the level of, say, a number 3 starter, the Cubs are in a great spot, because that's really, even that, I mean, they really do have a couple of guys who have ace level stuff. And if they can get another couple in there, in addition to Boyd, if it's Boyd and Imanaga, who are kind of that number 2, number 3, well, now you've lengthened that out. And, keep in mind, they're going to get Justin Steele back at some point after the first month or 2 of the season. So now you've got another arm that's in there. So they have a ton of depth. If he can just be consistent, and that's where the problem came in, is that you never knew what you were going to get from him. He might go lights out for 5 innings and then all of a sudden fall apart. If he can just keep that up and avoid the damaging home runs, he provides them with just a tremendous asset to a really, really deep rotation that I think could make the run, as long as they all stay healthy, right? That really helps them once they get late in the season.
Mm-hmm. One more question about the Cubs before we move on to the rest of baseball. Edward Cabrera, he was 8-7 last year with almost a 3.5 ERA when he was with the Miami Marlins. Now he's projected to be the 3rd/4th starter in this Cubs rotation. What do you expect from Mr. Cabrera this year? I know the Cubs have him under control for the next couple of years after this year. He's been one of the best young consistent pitchers in the game. Of course, he got lost in the sauce playing for the Miami Marlins, but what do you expect for him in his first year in the Cubs uniform?
Yeah, I really like what he brings. Like I said, he's got some of the best stuff that's out there. I mean, when you're talking about upper 90s fastball, interestingly enough, right, his fastball and his slider, despite being really high in terms of velocity, even in a league where that continues to increase, those were really his 2 worst pitches. He's got that power changeup that he throws in the low to mid 90s. Really good breaking stuff. And I think getting him out of Miami, getting him with a pitching infrastructure, whether that's Tommy Hotovy, the pitching coach, or Tyler Zombros, the organizational VP of pitching, I think dialing in his repertoire, his pitch sequencing a little bit better will really help. But more than that, it's getting out of that environment. There's so many guys who you see kind of play in relative obscurity. You're playing in front of a relatively empty ballpark down there in Miami, and you go from that to Wrigley Field in the summer. I think he's really going to benefit from that, and being able to pitch in front of those fans, feel that energy, and have a little bit more. I don't want to say guys are pitching to get out of Miami or to get out of Tampa or some of these other places that do frequently end up trading their best players rather than paying them. Sometimes that can really put a load on you. I don't know when or where I might be traded. I'm pitching for my next gig. And I think being able to settle in, have a team that is not only in contention, but that's playing well in front of 40,000 fans every day is one of those things where I think we could see this guy really, really break out and finally translate that elite stuff into better results.
Let's talk about the rest of the NL Central, Evan. Milwaukee, I know they've traded some of their key guys from last season, but they still somehow give the Cubs fits. Pittsburgh, Paul Skeens, we'll see where that goes. St. Louis looks like they're rebuilding. Cincy, maybe. So who do you think can challenge the Cubs in the NL Central?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Brewers somehow, right, continue to trade off their best pitcher every single year, it seems like, and they have no momentum slowing down whatsoever. They just maintain the same, they're winning 90-plus games every year is what it feels like. But I do think at a certain point that has to run out, right? Like, you can't just trade your best players every single year and continue to be as good. They do still have some young talent, right? Jacob Mizrowski's up there, and they've got a few others. So I do think they're gonna be troublesome yet again. Pittsburgh, you noted, and they've added some guys there. Cincinnati added Eugenio Suarez, who's obviously did very well for them back in the day and has always been a Cubs killer. So I do think it's still the Cubs division to lose. I really do think they should be the clear favorites there. I believe they're going to win it. However, I could see them doing so with even fewer wins than they had last year, just because of the fact that Pittsburgh's probably going to steal a few more wins here and there. Cincinnati's going to be very competitive, and so it's been a little bit more democratized. So I could see them kind of being bunched up a little bit. I don't know that anybody's going to run away with it. especially not. I don't think Milwaukee would, even if they do end up winning it again. But I put the Cubs as the favorites. But I'd say if they can get to 90 wins, that's going to be a really, really strong season in what I think will be a very, very competitive division.
Last moment or two with Evan Altman from Cubs Insider. He's kind enough to join us here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See LaKeena here with you. Continue with the thing with the rest of baseball. Representing the National League has been the Los Angeles Dodgers the last couple of years, back-to-back World Series champions. Of course, we haven't seen the three-peat from a baseball team since the 2000 New York Yankees when they defeated the Mets in that Subway Series, capping off a winning 4 World Series in 5 years, including the three-peat from 98 until 2000. The age-old question I'll ask you, to represent the National League in this year's World Series, do you take the Dodgers or are you going to take the field?
I think I'll take the field, honestly, if for no other reason than as good as the Dodgers are, as much as they continue to spend, at some point, the age has to catch up with them, right? Shohei Ohtani's 30, and he's about the youngest guy in that lineup. I mean, these are not a bunch of young players, and I do wonder how much, I say that, and it's probably, Kyle Tucker will probably go hit 65 home runs and they'll just boat race everybody yet again. But I do think that'll catch up to them. If not this year, then before too long. But I think a lot of other teams are out there gunning for them, and heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? They are not as young as they've been, and I think that at some point we see that catch up to them a little bit, and then maybe somebody's able to get a puncher's chance and land one in the postseason this year.
Now, I know you're a big IPA guy, Evan, and for all of those out there who's good, what's your go-to IPA for a nice opening day of Cubs baseball, or any baseball for that matter?
I mean, honestly, anything from Hot Butcher there in Chicago is going to be my go-to. I really enjoy that. I was and I'm trying to remember the one, and I probably won't bust this open. I got, what is it, the Blizzard of 67 or 76 or whichever that they have, but that's like a triple. That's like 10%. I try to stay away from that. So gotta go a little bit lighter and pace yourself on there. But anything that's the hazy, again, if I can get something from Hot Butcher, which I can't always find around here, then that's going to be my go-to. But then I'll have to downshift from that and probably get into something quite a bit lighter. Maybe even crack an old style every now and again for the opening day.
Last question for me, Evan. Going to the American League, of course. So we saw that Toronto had a great run last year, losing to the Dodgers in 7 games. I know they play your Cubs in Wrigley later on this year, I believe in the month of June, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of people are talking about the Yankees to get Garrett Cole back. Carlos Rodon had a nice year last year. Is it the Yankees and everybody else, or do you see teams like Boston and perhaps Baltimore picking up Pete Alonso, or perhaps maybe LaKeena's other favorite team, the Seattle Mariners, maybe still in the crown and represent the American League?
Yeah, I mean, the AL looks like it's pretty bunched up there at the top, in the AL East. Like, we didn't even, you got Toronto, right, who they fell short, and they went out and went ahead and spent a ton of money on guys, right? They've loaded up on the pitching staff there. So I think that you look at New York, you look at Boston, you look at Baltimore, you look at Toronto. I mean, that's going to be a tough one. And you almost look at that as what used to be the SEC in football, no longer, because the Big Ten obviously has kind of changed that. So I like, though, I think the Mariners have a little bit of an easier go of it in their division, which I think at the end of the day will help them out. You're not quite getting beat up as much. You aren't having to burn up as many of your arms maybe just to make it and kind of fight through. And if they're able to get, the tough part to me is having to land in that wild card series and use up some more, and you don't get that break. So I like the Mariners. I still like the Blue Jays, though. I think the Blue Jays and Mariners are going to be right down to it yet again. Those are my two picks to be the ones representing the AL.
It's been so much fun as always, Evan. Thank you so much for joining us as usual. Now, I would ask you where can people follow you, but your Twitter account got hacked. So hopefully you can recover. You can cover your account. We've seen, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but hopefully you can. And what people can follow you on social media and all your articles and such, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you can still check out Real Cubs Insider there on Twitter, or just check out CubsInsider.com. hopefully we'll get that stuff all figured out. And one way or the other, if I got to figure out a backup, we'll get there. But one or the other, I'll be around somehow.
All right, thanks, Evan. Great job as always breaking down the Cubs and the rest of baseball. And enjoy the whole opener. If it's on Thursday, it'll be on Thursday. If not, it'll be on Friday because of potential weather. And it should be a great, exciting year up on the north side. And we'll have you back on the show once the season gets going.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Appreciate having me on, and have a great rest of the show.
Thanks,
Thank
Evan.
you.
All right, that was CubsInsider.com's Mr. Evan Altman. Sid, let's take our 2-2 timeout. And of course, we'll talk a little NBA. We have not forgotten about the NBA, folks. Don't worry. A couple of milestones for both LeBron and KD, and LeBron, Luka, and the Lakers are keeping it going. Some big ratings for the first weekend of March Madness. We may talk a little bit of women's March Madness if we have time. The Blackhawks, just a tough weekend for the Blackhawks this weekend, unfortunately, and a big payday for Jackson Smith Njiba. So we'll have that and so much more coming next. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, our Sports Potpourri segment coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you live this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, to the Monday extravaganza. This year, a lot to load it, and we're live in the color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my King McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's again IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. So this is our last break of the show for today. So if you have any last minute, you got to hit us up, not now, but right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Bulls haven't played since early last week, and I think that's not a bad thing. They will play Houston. They do host Houston tonight at the UC. Now, Houston had a pretty busy weekend this week. They beat Atlanta 117-95. KD had 25. He also had 27 as they held off Miami. That was actually a very entertaining game. He also passes Jordan for number 5 all time in the NBA's career scoring list. And Altman Thompson had the tip in at the buzzer. That was an interesting sequence there. But yeah, a nice weekend for Houston. I'm sure they're going to want to continue it against the Bulls tonight.
Yeah, we talked about Houston being one of those top contending teams in the Western Conference. You know, that's still a young squad. Yes, they travel here to Chicago to face the Bulls tonight. Hopefully, they don't take their foot off the gas. I know they had a rough go over here over the last few weeks, especially on the road. But with a veteran like Kevin Durant, those guys should be able to fill in their roles, start to play more consistent basketball. Like you said about Kevin Durant passing MJ, he's one of the best scorers in his generation. He's a multi-world champion, and he's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. But going back to this year's Rockets team, you do not want to depend on the 37th, 38-year-old man to bail you out and score a bunch of points, and everybody else would be put in check. But everybody else has to play their part, be more consistent to help out Kevin Durant, so he doesn't have to do this as much. As a veteran that he is on that team, he could come in and be the closer. And with the Rockets having 43 wins at this point in the season, you got to consider Ime Udoka has done a nice job. Especially remember Fred VanVleet, not from Chicago, but he's from downstate in Rockford, Illinois. You know, he's out with the year with a torn ACL. They had to go. Houston had to go with a quote unquote big lineup, starting lineup to survive. But so far, they've done a great job.
Yeah, so far so good. All 5 stars were in double figures in that game against Miami in a pretty entertaining game on Saturday. So should be an interesting one over at the UC tonight. Now going through real quick with these, we'll just do the most important games. Minnesota with a nice win over Boston. Bone Tyler had 23 off the bench. Again, no Anthony Edwards for a little while. And I know they've had their struggles the last couple of games, but this is actually a game that they really needed. This is actually their first win, against Boston in Boston. Yeah, going back to 2005. That was the last time that the T-Wolves won. And some big defensive stops from Julius Randle. Like I said, 19 points for Jaden McDaniels. Io, he's in the starting lineup now for Ant. He has 17 points for the T-Wolves. Excuse me, and with a nice win for them. On the flip side, though, Jaylen Brown had 29. Tatum did not play a lot in that fourth quarter. He only has 16 points. Like they say, Joe Mazzola wants to kind of get him in a rhythm and such. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, if you're Minnesota, you'll take the win if you're Minnesota, especially without Ant.
Yeah, like I said, this game was more important for Minnesota, especially given the fact that you mentioned Edwards is not there. This serves well for Minnesota from a confidence standpoint. Can they survive with that without Anthony Edwards in the short term? Yes. Could they survive without him for a playoff series? No. But as far as the short term is concerned, for them to get prepped for the playoffs, all their role players had to be consistent and step it up another notch, and they did that in a tough environment last night. On the flip side, for Boston, as we said when Jason Tatum came back a couple of weeks ago, you're going to see him being Easter to the line. He's only going to play between 27 and maybe 30 minutes a game between now and the end of the regular season, because we all know that the bench rotation is short enough once the playoffs begin. So if you're Boston, obviously you don't like losing at home, but you're not too worried. As long as they can get through this last part of the regular season, which is only a few weeks away, and be healthy going into the playoffs, the Celtics should be fine. In my opinion, they're still the number 1 team to come out of the East, especially with Tatum back now.
Yep. So yeah, the 10 to 12 games depending on the team. So yeah, not a lot of games left. So you definitely want to try to get him into a rhythm. Going into Saturday's games, we talked about Houston, Miami with the Mon Thompson tip in at the buzzer. Clippers got a much needed win in Dallas. They needed overtime, but they got it done. Darius Garland had 41 points, the most he has scored since joining the Clippers. The Lakers have won 9 in a row. They need a buzzer beat. Well, they blew a lead, but they need a buzzer beater from Luke Kennard to beat the Magic. And also another milestone for LeBron. He passes Robert Parrish for most games played in the NBA, in NBA history, I should say. So, look, I think, and I heard Iman Shumpert and Alan Hahn on Get Up earlier, and I think Alan was the one who said that. I think maybe JJ Redick had actually finally figured out a formula. Don't have LeBron, Luka, and Reeves all at the same time, and it has worked. They've won 9 in a row, so maybe he found a formula.
We said this about 2 weeks ago, and just now everybody's catching up. How interesting. Maybe they listen to people like us who know better, but what do I know? But as we said before, LeBron, Luka, and also Reeves do not work well with each other. Not because they're bad people, but it's because of their skill set. And with LeBron James being 41 years old, you can't expect him to carry the team for a long time. He's not in his prime anymore. And Luka Doncic, he's the go-to guy. He sets the table offensively for the Lakers, and also the reason we talked about him has really grown. So having Luka and Reeves out there on the floor, that's the future for the Lakers, and that's what makes that team go. LeBron James had to be that third banana, in parentheses, 6-man off the bench, and like you said, that's the formula. We said it for the last couple weeks. So hopefully that JJ Redick can leave that alone, and we'll see if they can get the right matchup and perhaps hold corner advantage come playoff time.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Lakers, so they can keep it up. Now going to Friday's games, like I said, Minnesota, they've lost the last couple. They lost to Portland at home, 108-104. Boston beat Memphis. Detroit, they're doing pretty well so far without Cade Cunningham. 115-101 over Golden State. And Denver, look, they've won a couple in a row, so this should definitely help them. Of course, they beat Portland. On yesterday they beat Toronto on Friday, so maybe Denver is starting to try to figure things out a little bit.
Yeah, as we said, Nikolai Jokic, who's an MVP candidate again this year, I think it's supposed to go to Jaylen Brown or maybe SGA again for the second year in a row. We'll see. But we know that Jokic he's Mr. Everything for the different Nuggets. He's suffering from fatigue, in my opinion, as everything has gone through him all season long. Aaron Gordon, who returned to the lineup a few weeks ago, he's been out most of the season due to various injuries. The same with Jamal Murray, even though Jamal Murray has played the majority of the season, he has to be that second banana on a consistent basis to help out Jokic. And some of the role players like Cam Johnson, Christian Brown, and Bruce Brown, who was brought back before the start of the season, they had to pick up their play as well. Tim Hardaway Jr., one of the few people that have been Mr. Consistent off the Denver's bench over the last few weeks, he's been doing very well. But all of them had to get on the same page and stay healthy, because if they don't, as I said over the last couple of shows, it could be another early exit for the Nuggets.
And we're just to see if they can keep it up. Now going to this week's games, I should say, a busy week in the NBA, almost a full slate tonight. Now, no Cade Cunningham, but it should still be a good one. We'll see if the Lakers can get to 10 in a row as they face Detroit, Indiana against Orlando, OKC against Philly. This first game will be the first game of the NBCSN Peacock doubleheader. San Antonio and Miami should be a good one. Memphis and Atlanta. We talked about the Houston traveling to Chicago to face the Bulls at the UC. Toronto and Utah as they continue their West Coast trip. Golden State and Dallas. That's the second game of the Peacock NBCSN doubleheader. Brooklyn and Portland and Milwaukee and the Clippers as the whether or not they'll let Giannis play turns for the Bucks. So that story continues.
Yeah, with the Lakers and Pistons and Heat and Spurs are NBA Finals rematch tonight. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, go look at some of the old NBA Finals films right here on YouTube. Yeah, schedule for Tuesday tomorrow looks like this. Sacramento will continue their East Coast road trip. They'll visit Charlotte to play the Hornets. The Hornets have been one of the best teams in the NBA since their calendar year turned in January, and they've been playing like at 37 and 34. Other games are as follows for Tuesday. The Pelicans will visit the Knicks to play New York. Orlando and Cleveland will be the national game on Coast to Coast Tuesday on your local NBC affiliate, including here in Chicago. For those of you on the West Coast, you'll get Denver at Phoenix, and that's your schedule for Tuesday.
Another full slate for Wednesday. The first game of the ESPN doubleheader, you got Atlanta. They've been playing very well since trading Trae Young. They'll face Detroit. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. The Lakers and Indiana, they should be able to win that easily, but again, you never know with the Lakers as they conclude their East Coast trip. The Bulls are back on the road as they face Philadelphia, OKC, and Boston. Maybe a finals preview, perhaps. We'll see. Miami and Cleveland, that should be a good one. San Antonio and Memphis, Washington and Utah. The second game of the ESPN doubleheader, no Anthony Edwards, but this should still be entertaining regardless. Houston and Minnesota at the Target Center, Dallas and Denver, Brooklyn and Golden State, Milwaukee and Portland and Toronto. They'll wrap up their West Coast trip, I should say, as they face Kawhi and the Clippers.
Yeah, the Indiana and Lakers game, the 26th year anniversary of the 2000 NBA Finals. The late Kobe Bryant, still weird to say that, had a tremendous game for bailing out the Lakers, which was, in my opinion, the turning point in that series. But anywho, 3 games for Thursday are as follows. The lone game for NBA TV on Thursday will feature the New York Knicks traveling to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. The other 2 games are as follows. New Orleans will to their East Coast road trip. They'll face the Detroit Pistons without Cade Cunningham, and the Sacramento Kings will visit Orlando to take on the match. And that's your schedule for Thursday and for this upcoming week in the NBA.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Go switch gears here. Well, look, we went through a whole show without talking about the NFL, so we might as well do it now. A big record-breaking contract for JSN, better known as Jackson Smith Njiba from the reigning Super Bowl champ Seahawks. He got a 4-year extension, $168.6 million, including $120 million guaranteed. The average is about $42.15 million. Definitely setting records for the wide receiver side of it. They already picked up his 5th-year option. I'm talking about the Seahawks. So they lose Kenneth Walker the third to Kansas City, but they do keep one of their main pieces for their Super Bowl run. So I think he deserves every penny of that money. What say you?
I agree. Despite not having the greatest game statistically in the Super Bowl, we all know that what kind of impact that JSN has made with the Seattle Seahawks over the past 3 years, and he commands a double team. It makes everybody else around that Seahawks offense, especially when Kenneth Walker III was there, a whole lot better. He made Sam Darnold better this year. So, and that was one of the reasons why they won the Super Bowl. I want to bring it back here to Chicago for just a minute, LaKeena. We talked about Caleb Williams improving last year. They lost DJ Moore to Buffalo via trade. Omalade Zaccheaus has now gone back to Atlanta via free agency. The receivers that they have right now, Luther Bird and Rome Odunze in particular, if Rome Odunze balls out next year, I think in the next couple of years he could earn that money, but he has to earn his pay in terms of staying healthy and being productive on a consistent basis. Rome started that second year last year before he had foot problems. Made a couple key plays in that playoff run, including that 4th and 8 catch against Green Bay in the playoff comeback win. But if Rome Odunze stays healthy and consistent over the next couple of years, he could be in line for a big payday as well. But that's something to keep in mind for down the road.
Yeah, I mean, staying healthy, that's really going to be the key here. He hasn't really been healthy the last couple of years. He hasn't played a full season. So that really is going to be interesting to see what happens with, how much money will he get that contract. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that whole thing. But yeah, going to JSN, I think he definitely deserves that money. And look, the Seahawks have been pretty busy. I think, yes, they lost Kobe Bryant, not that Kobe Bryant, but they lost Kobe Bryant. Of course, they traded him to the Bears. He signed with the Bears, I should say now. It looks like Devon Witherspoon, he also got his 5th-year option picked up. So I'm sure they're going to try to get him a track extension. So that's going to be the next thing here, of course, for the new ownership, whoever they end up, he or she or they end up being. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Seattle does. And look, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially with the draft coming up in about just less than a month from now.
Yeah, in the salary cap era that we're in right now, I know the price tag keeps going up every year for your premier players. The Bears are finding that out now. They're going to find out in the next couple of years that they keep improving. You can only pay about 2, maybe 3 guys what they're really worth, but everybody else is going to have to pinch pennies. Seattle's finding that out right now, and the Bears, along with everybody else, is going to have to follow the same formula if you want to keep your team competitive.
Now, staying with that, Chiefs, Travis Kelce, he signed this contract. It's a 3-year deal, just a little over $55 million, I should say. It could be worth up to about $58 million with incentives and such. So you get $12 million plus $3 million in incentives. So I don't think anybody thought that. Will he play the whole 3 years? Who knows? But at least you got him to the fold there. We'll see how much he has left in the tank. So that's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. But also Josh Dobbs, the Patriots have released him. So he's now a veteran QB. He's gonna be out on the market now. So a couple interesting notes other than besides the JSN signing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Travis Kelce. Do you think he's going to play the whole 3 years? I don't think so. I wouldn't be shocked that 2026 would be his last year. But at the same time, you don't know when Patrick Mahomes is coming back. Could he surprise all of us to make his debut sometime in September? It's possible. Or he could come back at the middle toward the end of October. We'll see. I know they picked up Justin Fields, so that's good for in the short term for the Chiefs. But if Travis Kelce plays beyond 2026, I'll be shocked. He may play in 2027. It depends on how healthy Patrick Mahomes is to end the regular season. If he comes back at some point next year. So do I think he's going to play the whole 3 years? No, because of age. He's still very productive here in spots. We've seen that over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. But, Father Time is undefeated, and it's gotten him.
Yeah, so
still going to be going to the Hall of Fame, one of the best tight ends in his era, but age has really caught up to him, interchangeable over the last few years due to their salary cap situation.
And also injuries as well for him. So like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he does retire after this season. Like I said, all depends on how they do, whenever Mahomes does come back. So the Chiefs are going to be a fascinating team to watch for various reasons, because they've had to let guys go because of cap issues and such. So lots to be decided here. Now, another team that real quick before we move on here, the Eagles have had a pretty busy last couple of days as well. They traded Sidney Brown. No, not our Sidney Brown, but they traded their safety Sidney Brown over to Atlanta for and also I guess this is what interesting here that the Eagles agreed to terms with veteran safeties Marcus Epps and JT Gray. They get 1-year deals, and they of course is a swap of 4th and 6th round picks for both of the Eagles and Atlanta with that Sidney Brown trade. So I don't know if they're trying to get still trying to get Max Crosby, with all the picks, but Howie Ross might have something up his sleeve. He might not, but look, I think that they're having their own cap issues, and then the AJ Brown situation won't go away either.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback off the A.J. Brown situation. That's the $64,000 question. What are you going to do with A.J. Brown? Will you trade him, or you had to, quote-unquote, fake it to make it in terms of everything is cool? Hopefully we could get through the 2026 season, at least until the trade deadline, with him, quote-unquote, being a good citizen. We don't know. But if the Eagles are trying to give Max Crosby good luck to him, because they'll definitely put him back in contention in terms of being a Super Bowl contender. But we saw what Philadelphia was last year. They struggled offensively, even though part of the game plan was to keep Jalen Hurts upright. Did it work? Technically, yes, but we didn't see the Jalen Hurts that we saw 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl over Kansas City.
Going to be very interesting, though, to see what they do with this, because, like I said, they got a lot of draft capital with that trade for Brown. So I think some of it was cap, but also too, I think both these 4th and 6th round paid spots for this year. So I'm interested to see what they do with those picks. But I think they may have that in their back end. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Eagles. Like I said, will AJ Brown be gone by the draft, or perhaps maybe before the first game of the season? We'll have to wait and see.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See LaKeena here with you, heading down the home stretch. Quickly, LaKeena, let's do that hockey. As the Blackhawks had a tough weekend, as you mentioned at the top of the show, they lost to Colorado on Friday at home ice, wearing those beautiful newly rendition black jerseys. Yesterday, they fell in overtime to Nashville 3-2. Connor Bedard netted home his 29th goal of the year in the third period. Veteran Steve Stackhouse, remember him from his days in Tampa, finishing out his career in Nashville. He scored a goal as well, named the third star of the game. LaKeena, hopefully the Hawks, as we said, they need to finish strong, get some confidence, build some confidence going into next year. If they learn their lessons right now, know that Jeff Bledsoe's done an amazing job as a first-year head coach of the Blackhawks. Hopefully Cal Davidson can put some pieces, the right pieces together over the summer, because this is a crucial time for the Blackhawks. They can learn those lessons, get the right people in here to help out Connor Bedard on the top line, and go for the playoffs next year.
And then not gonna talk about the Avs game. That was just ugly from jump. But for the Preds, I mean, look, they've had their chances as of late with the Preds. Forsberg, I should say, he had the assist game winner, just not even just over a minute into overtime. So that was all she wrote there for the Blackhawks. I think that's all you can ask for, is just improve. Look, they're playing a lot better. They're getting the best of some of the top teams. They play the Islanders in Staten Island tomorrow. That's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. That game will be on ESPN Plus streaming there. So all you can ask for is just to finish strong if you're the Blackhawks, right? They only got a few games left. So I think you want to kind of like put on a show. Bedard's been playing better. Nazar as well as some of the other young players. So I think that's all you can ask for here. And just looking at their schedule, they're gonna be playing a lot of Eastern Conference teams, and some of them are in playoff contention. So you'll get the best of all their guys. So that's all you can ask for too. Is just keep improving and just play hard and see what we can do going into these next month or so left in the regular season for them.
All right, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll end the show with Old School TV Monday in just a moment. But first, LaKeena has some sports media nuggets. Too bad we're not in the studio. We could do a little new sound and beeper. But LaKeena has some news regarding the viewership of the NCAA tournament. The first time this happened since they collaborated with Turner and CBS back in 2011. Tell us about it.
Yeah, they delivered the most. Both CBS and Turner Sports delivered the most watched NCAA tournament first round opening day ever. Thursday's games average about just under 10 million viewers, 9.8 if you want to get technical. That's up 6% from last year. And the primetime window led by Michigan, Howard, and VCU at North Carolina. They averaged about 12.5 million. That's the most watched first round window in the history of the NCAA tournament. Overall, tournament viewership has been best start, averaging just a little over 9.3 million. That's 5% jump, I should say. That's the most ever, and a lot of this stuff stemmed from the Kentucky Santa Clara game, which our buddy Spiro D was on the call for that game. They actually got a view of an announcer with Spiro and James Monarco as they were reacting to that last crazy 20-second sequence in the regulation. I'm glad they got that. They've had that the last few years. CBS and Turner, they've had that for their announcer Cam and such. So that's kind of led the way there. And some of the other ones, I think. And look, we talked about this, ad nauseum for the last couple of years, and we talked about it last year too, with last year's tournament. And also people say, Cinderella. We were sick of the Blue Bloods. Well, you saw what happened last year with the ratings there. We saw it this year with the ratings. People like the Cinderellas, but they like the Blue Bloods too. So, hopefully this will be more evidence of that.
I know that many, especially the old heads, would say that the perfect scenario for the NCAA tournament. Yes, we like the upsets, but we like you said, we like the blue bloods like Kentucky and Duke and North Carolina and Kansas to all stick around. Does it happen in most years? Yes, but some years, especially now in this new NIL era in college basketball, in college sports, period, that all just about not all teams, but half the field has a chance to really go on a run and take the title. We saw what happened with Florida last night. We saw what happened with North Carolina, even though they were missing Caleb Wilson for the last month. And so when we have injuries, especially to big time teams, it opens it up for other teams in big time conferences. It may open up a surprise run for some of the smaller schools. So in this era that we're in right now, it's not a lock that Duke is going to win. You saw Duke struggle with Siena in the opening round, so they barely survived. So, yes, the Blue Bloods will help bring some of the casual fans in, but if it's just pure basketball and the games are competitive like we experienced over the weekend, people are going to watch. It's just that simple.
And I think gambling also played a part in a lot of this as well. So whether it's nobody wants to admit it or not, but yeah, I think that's really
right.
To see what happens. So I think this is I think if you're CBS and Turner, I think you should be celebrating, especially with now all but official their merger agreement. I think that relationship is going to continue for years to come. This has actually been a good relationship and a good partnership. So I think if the NCAA, I think they are going to continue it. I think it's not up to like 2030 or 2030. So and I think they are going to extend their partnership. So I think if you're you gotta be feeling pretty good if you're CBS and Turner and also the NCAA.
Yep. As you should. All right, LaKeena, as we usually do around this time every Monday on the show, we like to send you off with some good feelings as we present to you a special edition of Old School TV Monday with Major League Baseball opening day starting on Wednesday for 2026 with San Francisco Giants and the New York Yankees on Wednesday on Netflix, but everybody else starting on Thursday. Of course, with my White Sox playing the Milwaukee Brewers in Milwaukee starting on Thursday. Shane Smith will go on the hill for Chicago. Jake Misarowski, the second-year phenom, he'll go on a bump for Milwaukee. Well, let's pay tribute to the city of Milwaukee by saluting the ABC TV sitcom from the 1980s, Mr. Belvedere. That's right. Mr. Belvedere was an American sitcom that originally aired on ABC from March 15th of 1985 until its cancellation following the 107th episode on December 30th of 1989. The network then shelved the remainder of season 6. ABC aired the show's two-part series finale on July 8th, 1990, a rare occurrence for a canceled program. The 8 remaining episodes from season 6 that the network shelved, bringing the final number totals to episodes 117, will eventually air in syndication. The series is based on the Lynn Aloysius Belvedere character created by Greg Davenport for her 1947 novel Belvedere, which later adapted to the 1948 film Sitting Pretty. The show stars Christopher Hewitt as the title character and Butler from an American Family headed by George Owens, played by the late great Bob Uecker, who was the former announcer of the radio announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers until he died a year ago to the day. And LaKeena, just real quick about Bob Uecker's character, he played a sports writer, but even though they say he was a construction worker in the pilot episode, their relationship between him and Mr. Belvedere was priceless. They went back and forth, but deep down they really cared about one another at the end of the day.
The show was actually set in suburban Pittsburgh, and it was actually pretty funny. Him and Wesley too, who played the youngest of the Owens kids, and they had a nice little rapport as well. They go back and forth, and more than hell, they both more than hell. They both got their little snipes at each other. But like I said, they had their moments where they actually loved each other and such. And like other shows in the 80s, they weren't afraid to tackle really tough issues. They were the first shows to tackle AIDS. In the terms of they used one of Wesley's friends, he contracted AIDS from a blood transfusion. This is actually a little bit before Ryan White, if you guys remember his story, about a couple years later. Of course, they dealt with drinking.
1988.
Yep. And of course, they dealt with drinking. Of course, he went to a party, a frat party. He, got drunk, and we saw what happened there. Also, molestation. That I felt that was more well done than the Different Strokes one. I'm just saying that was actually unfortunately.
Yeah, that was very scary, but
yeah, it was very commonplace there. And if you remember in the last season, Heather, who the daughter, dealt with date rape. That was in one of the last episodes that, and I remember Tracy Wells, she did interviews that Heather was able to get out of that situation before anything really, really horrible happened to her. So she said, she gave the writers kudos for, having her get out of that situation, having her care to get out of that situation before anything really horrible happened. She fought back and she told her parents what had happened to her. So, and date rape was actually starting to become legal at that time. It was just becoming legal there. So yeah, they dealt with issues, but they didn't like beat you over the head with it. They gave you a nice balance of funny but also heartfelt, and it was actually kind of topical. I know they weren't a rich family, but Martha, the mom, she was going back to school, law school, and finish up her law degree, and of course they brought Mr. Belvedere in to kind of be like the so like the teacher, teaching to teach the family be a little bit more, not upper crust, but more like demure and stuff like that. And that was a hilarity ensues. And I loved every episode. And a lot of most of the episodes, I think the whole runs on YouTube. And I know Sid and I were talking earlier that they didn't remember they canceled the show, like Sid said, they shelved the show. Those episodes didn't air. The last episodes didn't air until around the summertime. Without not a lot of, I actually just saw it on the old TV guide, and so let me just go ahead and watch it. So of course the 2-parter when Mr. Belvedere got married, that was the last episode, and a lot of people didn't see that. They didn't notice it. It wasn't until the show first ran its syndication. That's when people since thought what had happened. So but that was just crazy how that ended.
And bringing back to the baseball side with the late great Bob Uecker, I know the MLB Network did a documentary on him a few years ago. I think it's available on YouTube. Pat Hughes, a Hall of Fame broadcaster who does a phenomenal job for the Chicago Cubs. Remember, he was a Milwaukee Brewers radio announcer in the 80s, and they interviewed him for that Bob Uecker documentary for MLB Network. He said he was talking about how Bob Uecker was the life of the party. He had a great personality. Of course, Bob Uecker did those Major League films as well. But he said that it would stink. I was just paraphrasing him, Pat Hughes. He said it would stink that every August and early September he would go away because he had to film Mr. Belvedere, and Pat Hughes would fill in for him. So, Bob Uecker, of course, he wasn't the greatest baseball player growing up, but he used to appear on the Tonight Show with the late great Johnny Carson at the time. And someone asked Johnny one time, why you keep inviting him on your show? He's like, because he doesn't give a bleep. And he doesn't take himself too seriously, and he is who he is. He's comfortable in his own skin. You saw that in his work with Mr. Belvedere. You saw that in those Miller Lite commercials back in the day, and of course he brought that fun attitude to the broadcast booth, not only with the Milwaukee Brewers there in Milwaukee, but nationally when he did work with the late Joe Morgan and Bob Costas. Remember, they did those playoff games for NBC in the 90s into early 2000s. Before there, NBC's contract was cut short by MLB.
And connecting to Mr. Belvedere, the remaining members of the cast, of course, Christopher Hewitt passed away back in the early 2000s, but after Mr. Uecker had passed, they actually, the Brewers, they celebrated his life during their series with the Brewers series with the Giants, and all the rest of the members, the surviving members of the cast came in, and that was a really nice moment. They showed a picture with all 4 of them. They all look great. Look, Rob Stone. Look, I'm not afraid to say he was one of my first crushes. He can still he's in his 60s. I don't care. But they said they all look fantastic. So. They all look fantastic. So and I saw they do a lot of promotional stuff with Mr. Belvedere from time to time. So that was a really nice. I'll give the Brewers kudos for doing that. So that was a really nice moment, and it was kind of like going back to my childhood, seeing all of them there together. That was really nice.
Yeah. And so for this week's edition of Old School TV Monday, as we get you ready for the MLB Opening Day 2026, we salute the ABC TV sitcom from the 1980s, Mr. Belvedere. And real quick, LaKeena, before we go off, I know we're time limited, but I know that the Brewers have a statue for honoring Mr. Uecker outside of, I'm not calling it that new name, but I still call it the old name, Miller Park. Hopefully I get a chance to see it. Of course, I'll be up there on Sunday for the series finale between the Brewers and the White Sox. And Bob Uecker was beheld not only throughout baseball, but of course throughout the city of Milwaukee and the Brewers fan base as well. Real quick, we'll give you the schedule for opening day. Of course, Wednesday, it'll be on Netflix with the San Francisco Giants hosting the New York Yankees. The rest of the schedule for Thursday looks like this. Of course, the Brewers and the White Sox at 1 o'clock. The Pirates and the Mets will headline the day-night doubleheader for the new MLB on NBC. They'll be at high noon. The rest of the schedule for opening day on Thursday looks like this. Washington will visit LaKeena's Cubs if no bad weather occurs. If it does, the Cubs homeowner will be moved to Friday. Other opening day games for Thursday: Minnesota at Baltimore, Boston at Cincinnati. The LA Angels will visit Houston, take on the Astros. Detroit at San Diego, Texas at Philadelphia, Tampa Bay at St. Louis. The nightcap for the debut for the MLB on NBC, the Los Angeles Dodgers will host the Arizona Diamondbacks as the Dodgers receive their rings for last year. And the Guardians will take on LaKeena's other favorite team, the Seattle Mariners. And that's your opening day schedule for this Thursday.
And enjoy all that. That should be a fun matchup by all. Like I said, weather permitting with some of, I think a couple of these games are going to be threatened by weather. So we'll see if that Milwaukee White Sox game, they could get that weather too. So we'll see what happens if either one of those games will be played on Thursday. But also a quick note here, Madeline Burke, I should say, the longtime host for the Giants, and also she's been at CBS Sports headquarters the last few years. She's signed on with ESPN to be one of the new Sports Center anchors. So that should be an interesting match out there. They're definitely going a little bit younger. I'm talking about ESPN is with their Sports Center. So she's actually really good. So she's actually really good. So we'll see if she brings a lot of experience in the New York area. And also she's from the West Coast. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what she brings to the table for ESPN and for their Sports Center coverage.
Yeah, like I said, SportsCenter needed a shakeout for the last few years, and she's going to bring new energy to that program, and hopefully they can put her on in some primetime spots. She did a great job for covering the Giants for the last decade, so she'll do great things with ESPN.
Yep. And all right, you can follow me at KD McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Be sure to download your apps. Please follow.
All right. Of course, if you miss an interview, if you missed an interview with Altman earlier, no problem. Or any of our other segments, don't worry. You can catch it anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels. The replays are right there. Thank you guys for keeping getting those numbers up. Let's keep getting them up. You can catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellas, much. Yep, and so much more. You can catch the replays anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
Okay, of course, yeah. Thank you so much again for joining us today. Of course, if you can catch the men's and the women's, the women's are actually going on right now down in Iowa. But of course, you can catch that as one of ESPN's family networks. You can catch, of course, the men's coming up later this week. Also, of course, the opening day of baseball. Enjoy that if you're going out there. Be careful out there. Just dress appropriately. That's all I'll say about that. Of course, the NBA and NHL have finished up their seasons and so much more. Just be good to each other. Enjoy all the sports. This is Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. I'm LaKeena, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Baseball is here. Go Sox. Holla!